in the wine world, which is, we're at Total Wine, they have the sommelier. Has anybody heard of that before? They have a mirrored program for beer, which is called the Cicerone program. It's a little younger than the wine program, but when Eric and I opened the brewery, that's my partner in the back, Eric. We're the founders. We've been in business 10 years. So when we opened up, Eric kind of led the sales and marketing team, and I led the side of the production. I needed a framework for which to learn beer better, and that's the one I did. And I set the ambitious goal of becoming a Master Cicerone, which is the top level. So I was thankful that I passed in 2019. I became the 19th person, and I was the only person to pass for 2 years. The year I took the test, nobody passed, and then the next 2 years, nobody did either. But fortunately, we've had some more people pass the credentialing and the exam. So I'm going to kind of talk to you a little bit about tasting beer today. We had somebody walk by that was joking and said, "Oh, is somebody going to teach me how to drink beer?" Well, no, we all know how to do that, right? That's easy. So my goal is to teach you appreciation for the beverage a little bit today. And you can use the things that I talk about today in anything that you eat or drink. And really, it's about being mindful. So we're going to taste today a lot of different things, a lot of different stuff, and they're going to serve you a lot. Do not feel obligated to drink it all. You can taste and you can dump in the container. I don't get my feelings hurt. When I did Master Cicerone, we did 30 beers on day 1 of the exam and then 30 beers on day 2. And I drank about a case of water each day too, because you're just drinking, spitting, drinking, spitting. So when you go in between beers, it's a good idea to have a little water, rinse the palate out, and refresh. So sorry, I was giggling at Eric. There's I'll get to it. I'll get back to the joke. But anyway, there's my picture where I was a little younger and had more hair than I have now. So I always use that one, which is good. I feel better about myself. So I put about, and I will say we will get to drinking soon. One of the comments I always get from people when I'm doing this class is like, "Come on, we're thirsty. Let's get to the beer." So we'll get to that really soon. But a little shameless plug. In 2018, 17, somewhere around there, I was deployed to Afghanistan, and Eric and the team ran the brewery. And when I was deployed, I noticed that I passed level 3 Cicerone, advanced Cicerone. And because of the unique circumstances of being a business owner and trying for the test, I was going for Master Cicerone. I ran into some people that were making a film, and some of my study partners, and they made a film similar to like Somm about beer going through this credentialing process, and it's called Beers of Joy. It's won some awards and things, and you can get it on YouTube for like $1 or $2. I didn't make any money off of it. Or you can get it on maybe Amazon Prime. It was on Hulu, but if you'd like to see would you like to see the trailer? It's a minute long. I'll play it. If not, I can skip it. Anybody? So we'll play that, and you can see what that's about.
Beer is the magic elixir. I think that it's really a gift from God.
Beer is part of our DNA.
Share something that you have in common. A lot of people don't have a lot of things in common right now.
Beer might just be what's going to end up saving us.
It's not a totally well-balanced diet. You need a few pretzels as well.
Tasting is something that requires all of your focus. It's like a symphony.
You're taking on a challenge that only 13 have been able to achieve.
Fantastic. Success.
The most difficult exam in all of beer.
It's a 99 to 100% fail rate.
The clock starts ticking at the beginning of a gauntlet.
I really want to get back to where we started.
I want to make a traditional Berliner Weiss, and I want it to just blow everyone away.
I'm very familiar with this style. I think it's a wit beer.
3.5. Uh-oh.
They make or break you sometimes. The last second changes.
Whew. This beverage encapsulates our society.
I think at this point it's a quest.
Joe cares so much about the little things.
I've seen people come to tears.
LL, caramel malt, sugar adjuncts, diacetyl, fruity, orange marmalade hops.
Bonus points.
It really represents the first biotechnology.
It can be dangerous and it's bloody hot.
Oh, that's boiling. It's going to boil over.
Someone is going to drink my beer in the Netherlands today, and it could possibly make their day better. That is why people should get in the beer business.
You cannot call it beer, you just have to call it a refreshing beverage made out of malt with alcohol.
So that's my 15 minutes of fame. If you want to see the longer version, then that's cool too. That's cool too. But so we're gonna get into drinking and tasting some beer, and all of that really starts with a good, clean glass. A lot of times you use rinse agents in the dishwasher, or you like to put your glass in a freezer, or it's been sitting on the shelf for a while and it gathers dust, dirt, grime, and debris. One of the things that I talked to my dad about is, because he loves, he's almost 80 now, he's 79, his birthday's in June. He talks about, liking an ice cold glass with his beer and putting it in the freezer. Well, think about, would you ever put a glass in the freezer and then take it out and put water in it and drink it? It's interesting to try that, because you get all the flavors that are in your freezer recirculating, like that 1,000-year-old fish that you have in there that came with the freezer, that gets on there, or any dirt that's been recirculating, it freezes on there. Then you pour your beer in, the beer nucleates, okay, and then you have ice crystals on your glass, you dilute the beer, you're adding flavor to it. You don't want that. You want a good room temperature, clean glass, okay, beer clean glass, and that's what you start with. So a few examples. So when you look at a glass, things that you find commonly, they're lipstick, because nowadays women have the lipstick that never comes off ever, and it doesn't come off your glass. Or you see no foam on the beer. Some beers just don't have foam, but some do. Most should, I should say. And then, or you'll see like these clinging bubbles on the side, or a chipped glass, things like that. Here's some examples. So you serve a beer. This is something you might see a lot. And you see those kind of like big bubbles at the top. That's no good. You want like a finer bubble on your beer. And then all the bubbles on the glass, that's from a dirty glass. That's dust and dirt on the inside of your glass clinging to the beer glass. You pour the beer in, it nucleates, and then you get that. Or, I put this up as an example. If I served a beer like this at my brewery, people would often turn it back. They're so used to getting a beer like this, right? Because they want every ounce of that has to be beer, and they don't consider foam beer. But foam is a great part of the beverage, an important part of the beverage, and it should be on top of your beer. And it's crazy. We're one of the only places and we're the greatest beer country in the world now, that don't mark their glasses for how much the customer is going to get. If you go in Europe, anywhere around, you'll notice they mark the glass, and then above that is foam, right? So oh no, I'm getting 1/3 of a liter, or I'm getting 16 ounces. Why don't we do that here, right? It's interesting. So in Belgium, you'll see, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute, they pour the beer with half foam, half beer, very commonly. Okay, that's how it's served. In Germany, they do that. Everybody talks about how great the German beer is, right? But in America, we go to a sports bar, we serve it 26 degrees, so it numbs your whole entire mouth. We pour it all the way up to the brim, and then when you drink it, it goes down your throat, warms up, and all the bubbles come out, and now you're burping and you can only drink one beer, right? No bueno. So we're gonna pour a beer, and we're gonna get into that now. And I'm going to show you, each of you, how I like to pour beer if I have time. Now, if I'm thirsty and I want to pour my beer right away, okay, I just open my beer, I put it on a 45, and I pour it like probably everybody knows how to do, right? You pour it on a 45, and then you tilt it up till you get about 1 inch of foam. That's a very common way, right? But today, what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you the stacked pour. And as you're trying that, everybody has a can of our beer. Okay, as you're trying to do this pour, I'm going to tell you why we do it, okay? So what I want you to do and try, and this is going to be really hard for some people. I always get some giggles when I watch you all do this. Don't tilt your glass. Just leave your glass straight upright, okay? I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to tell you how to do it. Leave your glass straight upright, open your can, and then you're going to pour it. Hold on, before you guys do it, let me just explain it all and then do it, okay? Then pour your beer in to the glass while the glass is upright. Everything in your mind is going to say, no, I need to tilt it, right? You're going to foam it all the way up. I want it to be at least this much foam, maybe even this much foam. So you only have that much beer, right? Okay, everybody try that. Don't drink any, okay? Just pour it in there and foam it up. Now you control the amount of foam. Try not to spill it. You control the amount of foam by the height of your beer, right? How high you're going to pour it. So we're going to wait now. This is what you do when you're being patient. You just wait, and you're like, man, I'm thirsty, and I want this beer. We're going to wait, and we're going to let the foam settle until it compacts. Then we're going to pour it again the same way and foam it up as much as you can, and wait and let the foam settle, and then do it again. The goal is to get a big, rich meringue on top of the beer. I don't know when you're going to have to do your next pour. It's up to you. You do it, okay? So you're watching your beer, and you're going to fill it up. This glass will hold almost all the can, okay? So you can pour some more, but wait till you get that nice, rich, this is a beer I poured myself at the brewery, and something like that, or maybe an inch and a half of foam, and you get that rich meringue. Now, CO2 is added to the brewery adds CO2 to every beer, but it also is produced during fermentation. You produce ethanol and carbon dioxide. Those are the two main things that happen. You consume the sugars in the malt, you produce ethanol, which we like, and carbon dioxide, and a bunch of other different flavors and stuff like that. Carbon dioxide is it's very soluble in liquid, and its solubility depends in part on the temperature of the liquid, okay, and also the space above it. This is called Henry's Law, okay? So we have to get the beer down cold to put the bubbles in the beer, right? And the colder you have your beer, if you put it in your freezer, the more the bubbles want to stay in. So what we're doing now is we're degassing the beer a little bit, okay? And we're releasing the aromas. I would pour some more on top of that. We're releasing the aromas of the beer, and we are making the body of it a little bit more drinkable. You can see mine's already standing up over the top. Do you get a Budweiser like this? No. This is how you can tell you have an all malt beer, if you have a good foam like that. And if you have a good clean glass, as you're drinking it, you'll get some lacing down the side, some notches, right? So now the body is a little bit less. You can see it's a beautiful filtered beer. There's bubbles coming off the bottom. A little bit less on the carbon dioxide in the body of it. We put it on the top. Now we have texture, aroma, mouthfeel, creaminess. All of this is coming from the foam we made. It's also protecting the body of the beer from oxidation, okay? Because you put this nice rich layer on it. Actually, when we're canning the product, every can that comes down the canning line, okay, it gets agitated just a little bit right before we put the lid on. We blast a little CO2 in it, and it foams it up. And right when the foam starts coming over, we put the lid on, and that squeezes out every last bit of oxygen in the can. That's called fobbing the can. And we can get as low as 50 parts per billion of oxygen in the can when we go out. And that's how we're able to put beer on the shelf in all the Total Wines in North Carolina and have it maintain its shelf life without pasteurizing it. So that's kind of cool. So feel free to enjoy your beer. That's just how I do it. Now we can start drinking. I can stop yapping so much about all these things that we can enjoy. So cheers to all of you. This is how I would like it. Cheers. One little fun fact about this. We used to put logos on all the glassware when Eric and I opened the brewery, and we did gold leaf on every one with the Sugar Creek logo on it. And when we opened, we were quite busy, and we got a lot of guests. And then at the end of the month, we look at our profit and loss, and we're like, holy smokes, how did we lose money this month in the tap room? We had a lot of people, right? Well, what happened is, and no offense to the ladies, but they're the biggest culprit. The ladies love the glassware because we were the first brewery in Charlotte to do things other than those shaker pints. We had stemmed glassware, which you're going to have some tonight. We had, this is called a Becker glass. We had Becker glasses. We had snifters and different styles in honor of kind of the Belgian beers that we loved in those styles, right? And the ladies would like them too and put them in their purse and walk out. And at the end of the quarter, we had lost $35,000 in glassware. Okay? $35,000. She's admitted she took one. So
some people are good though because they would mail them back to us out of pure guilt.
So
We would get I'm sorry cards with the glass back in.
unfortunately, we can't do logos anymore because of that. So what we do is we hide a little Easter egg in here for you. Look at Eric's beer, by the way, back there. That's how he likes to drink it. It's almost like the Pope hat on top of his beer. So if you look in the bottom of this, now the Pilsner, the origination of the Pilsner beer was kind of coincided with the Industrial Revolution. And when we learned how to make steel, okay, we were able to create indirect kilns. And when we had indirect kilns, we could malt malts in much lighter colors and dry the malt out. So when we had lighter colors, we could make a lighter golden colored beer. We needed glasses to showcase that golden, beautiful golden color. And that's where these tall footed Pilsner, slender Pilsner glasses came from. Not the one I'm holding today, but you've seen them, tall and slender Pilsner glass. Now, if you look at my glass or your glass, you'll notice there's bubbles rising from the bottom of it. That's continuing to release the aroma. Why is it released? Well, if you look at your neighbor, you guys can pass this one around. We etch the bottom of every glass with a laser and put our First and Taste logo on there. And that etching is what's causing the bubble nucleation and giving us this foam. You can pass it around or look and see in the bottom of that one. If you drink the beer from the can, not only are you not getting any of the foam or releasing that, your nose, who had COVID and lost their aroma? I know I did. What did food taste like when you lost your aroma? Right? No flavor. That's because most of the flavor that we get comes from our nose. So if most of the flavor comes from our nose and you put it up against this metal, how are you even getting any flavor, right? You want to put it in here where the beer or wine or whatever you're drinking is releasing the aromas. Put it in a glass, always. And it's funny, our neighbor is Old Mecklenburg Brewery. We purchased our equipment and leasehold improvements from Old Mecklenburg. They're right next door to us, they're friends. And so people will tell me, oh, I love copper, but I just only like it from the bottle. I don't like it in the glass or on draft. I just like it from the bottle. And then I go, well, you're telling me you don't like copper then, you know? Because you can't taste it out of the bottle. You can taste it out of the glass. So that's in the bottom of all of our glassware. Now, I want to say one more thing about carbon dioxide and foam, okay? And I could talk about this for an hour, but I'll just say one thing. There's another beer that I enjoy drinking, and it's popular on St. Patrick's Day. It's Guinness, okay? Now this beer is nitrogenated, meaning they don't add carbon dioxide to it. Every beer absorbs a little bit during fermentation, and then they add nitrogen. Now nitrogen is not as soluble as carbon dioxide, so it comes out right away. And when they pour it, they have a special draft faucet, or they have a can with a widget in it that has a restriction in there. They push the beer through that restriction, and that breaks out all of the nitrogen. None of it's left, and you get that beautiful cascading effect, right? Well, the beer itself, now this beer has about 2.7 volumes of carbon dioxide per volume of beer in it. What that means is that we dissolved 2.7 equivalent volumes. So from here to here, there's that much inside the beer of bubbles. The Guinness has almost none in it. So people say, well, why do I normally fill up when I get so full when I'm drinking dark beers? They say that a lot, but I can drink tons of Guinness. It's not the meat of the Guinness, the body of it. It's the fact that there's like no bubbles in it at all. It's all on the top of the beer. And everybody enjoys that foam in Guinness, right? Why not enjoy it with your other beers too? So my discussion on foam is done. All right, so the raw ingredients of this beer, it's Pilsner malt. I talked a little bit about that. It's only one malt that we add to this, one malt, Pilsner malt. It's a barley seed that's been malted and kilned to dry it and maintain a very light color. We use one hop, Satz hop. It comes from in Europe, and it's called a noble hop, meaning it's one of the original hops. You may have heard of noble hops. It's a classic European hop. Comes from the Czech Republic, okay? And we use lager yeast and water. That's it. So this would meet the criteria for the German purity law, the Reinheitsgebot, if you heard of it, right? And they call it a smash beer, single malt and single hop. Very simple. Now, hopefully you all have another sample in front of you, okay? This beer is made identically to this one. It's made identically. So this Spacewalker has the same raw ingredients. Pilsner malt, Satz hops, okay? But the difference is, so the main raw ingredients is the yeast. So when they say Belgian, okay, Belgian character, this uses a Belgian yeast strain. This was inspired by the Duvel beer, the Belgian Golden Strong, or Delirium Tremens. You can get both of those beers here in the store. Okay, it's made to be stronger. Okay, and it uses a Belgian strain. Now you notice it's massively different in flavor when you try it. Feel free to give it a try. All the flavor that comes out of this one beer, the additional one, comes from the yeast strain. So how important is the yeast strain? Now this one also has another major difference. The first beer we tried, the Pilsner, is 5% alcohol by volume, and this one you're trying is literally double. It's 10% by volume. So you should have some more heat and strength with that, okay? But the combination of the flavors in the Spacewalker, people often describe as bubblegum kind of character, but it's really three flavors that come together to give you the bubblegum. Clove is really, that you nailed it on that one, and banana. Now, isoamyl acetate, that's the ester that is banana. It's in almost every beer. There's banana in the first one we tried, the Pilsner, and there's banana in this one. It's a little stronger in this one. Now, here's the thing. Red apple skin, ethyl hexanoate, that's what that one's called. Banana, isoamyl acetate, okay? Clove, 4-vinyl glycol, that's clove. The one that's really different, clove is a spice, okay? The one that's really different is the clove. And our head brewer back at the brewery right now was a chef, and he hates clove, which is funny. And a lot of American consumers don't like clove either. And it's crazy because we started out with all Belgian beers, and we quickly realized that people don't like the Belgian yeast strain. And I think it is mostly because of the clove flavor, which is different in it, right? So if you taste the clove, which they call a phenolic compound in your beer, it's most likely a Belgian-inspired, a Belgian strain. Now, these ferment vigorously, and they're wild and invasive yeast strains. They like to cross-contaminate other beers, okay? And they vigorously and aggressively ferment the beer. And they often continue to ferment in the cans. So sometimes they can create problems where the brewer didn't realize the beer wasn't finished. They package it, put it in the store, and then you have an exploding can. I was fortunate to go on a trip with my brother to Germany a few years ago, and we went to Belgium. This was during Oktoberfest. That's how they served it to me. And then on the right is at the Orval Monastery. They serve this beer as well. They have this beer here in Total Wine. This is one of my favorites, Trappist beer, and we modeled some of our beers styles that we're going to try today after what the Trappist monks have been making for years and years. So this is Orval at the monastery, and they're highly carbonated, and I served it like that, and you can see that's an appealing kind of beer. So now that you have a few beers in front of you, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about flavor, and then I'm going to go over how we can go from drinking the beer to tasting the beer, okay? Drinking is what we do when we're just going to have fun and relax and not really trying to analyze the beer. Tasting is what we're going to do when we're trying to really get the depth and understanding of what's going on in the beer. So flavor is really the combination of three things: aroma, taste, and mouthfeel, okay? Mouthfeel being often referred to as the trigeminal sensation, or touch and texture. So think like, we feel like we do on our skin, also with our palate and our mouth. And the things that we feel are things like astringency, carbonation, creaminess, viscosity, intensity, warmth, coldness, pain, cooling, stuff like that. That's a component of flavor. Taste, that's your basic things: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami, fat, metallic, stuff like that, where you pinch your nose and you can just get it on the tongue still and around the palate. Now, this old one, the old tongue map, I actually did a science experiment on this when I was in second grade for the science fair. They said that was all BS, even though I did it for my science fair, so go figure. Now, what they found out is that all of our taste buds are everywhere, okay, all mixed around. There's not one section for bitter or sweet, okay? They're all over. And really, it's all over the whole palate, everywhere. So just to know that. And then aroma. Now, aroma being the biggest component, I love seeing this stuff you see on Discovery Channel or Science Channel, where they talk about how much better dogs are than we are. Like, hey, 10,000 times better they can smell, and they have a bigger part of their brain that can smell, and all those sort of things. Well, they've just found out recently, Google this and double check me, okay? They just found out recently, the science says that we can smell 3 trillion different aromas. Human beings, 3 trillion. So breweries often will buy a gas chromatograph. And what that is something that takes a small sample of the beer and puts it through a machine that costs about $175,000 just to detect if it has the smallest amount of skunkiness in the beer. When any one of you in the room with 5 minutes of training with me can learn how to smell the skunky flavor, okay? So tasters are super important at breweries, okay? And it's serious business, because think about having a big fermenter 100 feet tall, full of money, okay? And you have your brand standard, and it didn't come out to brand standard. You're not going to put it out in your retailer here at Total Wine, because your customer's going to know right away. So you send Eric in there with the social media camera, and you open the valve and flush that money down the drain, right? Based on what the taster says. And you need it to be a democratic environment, not one where you just have the Master Cicerone come in and say, oh, it's no good, dump it. Because everybody has bad days. You need to get a bunch of trained tasters, taste it, pull the data, okay, anonymously, and that's how we do it, even with me being significantly more trained than the other staff. And then look at that data and then make a decision from there, right? So that's the basics on flavor. And what we're going to do is a little experiment to talk about the 2 main ways we get aroma, which is orthonasal and retronasal. So everybody should have a plate in front of them, okay? And if you have a food allergy, please let me know, because this may have been processed in a plant that had peanuts. So if you have a peanut allergy, I'd probably skip it. But other than that, it's completely safe to eat. So what I want you to do, if you're adventurous and eat at your own risk, is to pinch your nose, okay? Do not let your nose out. Do not unsqueeze it. Pinch your nose and then chew. And I want you to mentally think, remember I talked about how tasting is a mindful thing? Think about what you're tasting, okay? Dawn, you should try it too. Try it. Okay, pinch your nose. Go ahead, macerate it up in the mouth. And don't unpinch until I tell you, because I want you to think about what you're tasting. You don't have to take the whole thing. You can just take a bite. Okay, unpinch. So how important is the nose, right? So who can give me a flavor or something they got when their nose was pinched? Heat. So that's the trigeminal. Remember we had the trigeminal? What did you get? Heat. Roughness. Anybody else? Pain? Pain? Anybody on this side? Sour? That's good. Did anybody get sweetness? It's coated in sugar. You can't taste sugar? It was that all the white crystals of sugar on the outside. So this is candied ginger. Okay? So what I did was so when we first sniff it, the beer, okay? That's orthonasal. That's in the nose this way. And when we breathe out, which I force you all to do, that's retronasal. So the retronasal comes over the olfactory bulb more than the initial one, and that gives us a bigger idea of what's going on. It's the breathing out part. So if you're getting something subtly and you want to emphasize it, you can always try that trick with your wine or your beer or whatever. Pinch your nose and breathe out your nose, and it'll pick up some more. I mean, your people are like, what is he doing? Or, you know, but I'm going to show you how I do it in a minute anyway. So that's ginger. So this is the new, I'm going to go over this for 2 seconds. This is the new beer flavor map. And this has, you can see what they do is they categorize it by aroma, flavor, mouthfeel, and taste. And then, you know, it breaks down from there. All the ones, the aromas are in this, and the taste are in like that, and the mouthfeel. It's kind of cool map because the way our brain works, it helps to see the words. And if I tell you them, it helps to anchor it as well. But if you see it visually, so when I was studying for the master exam, I would look at the words and then drink it and think and look at it and, oh yeah, that's in there, right? It's another reason why it's hard to taste with a buddy in the buddy system, because the buddy will influence you. If I say banana, you're going to taste it. And literally the part of your brain that says banana, that smells banana, will light up just by somebody saying it. So you can suggest this stuff. So when you're really trying to focus on your beer, it's a mindful exercise. You need to be by yourself, okay? And away from fans, in a room with not a bunch of distractions and things, so you can focus. So actually, you know, the background of the engine and the airplane, when you go from here to California or wherever you go and you hear the airplane engine, that will influence your taste. And the chefs know this, and they add more salt to amp up the flavor. It makes the taste more bland. There's been studies on that. They know that. So your food on the airline tends to be a little bit more salty than you would get it off the airline if you try to. And it's because of the engine noise, the background noise. So many things influence our taste. The pH of our saliva, what we just ate, okay, our friends telling us something, how we feel at the moment, okay, if we're pregnant or if we're not pregnant. Pregnant women tend to taste better than men in general, and that's been documented well. Lots of things, okay? So there's that as well. So this is my buddy, Michael Jackson. I say my buddy, but if you come to Sugar Creek, you'll see Michael Jackson. We have a portrait of him in the center of the bar, okay? He's the original beer hunter. He was knighted by the Belgians for his work, and he's dead now, but he is the first person to really bring Belgian styles to the US and popularize beer styles and document them. And I think he drank too much beer and whiskey because he passed away young. But he passed away happy. Okay, so being that we just had ginger, I'm going to take us into a ginger beer, and then we all have that. And you can sip it if you want now and try it, but I'm going to go through how to taste, okay, how I taste the beverage, all right? So what I do is, everybody has a plastic, right? Is you've seen Star Trek, and you make this, right? It's live long and prosper, right? So I make the Star Trek symbol, and then I turn my hand kind of like this, all right? And then I balance the glass on this and pinch it. Try that, okay? Why in the heck would I do that? Why in the heck would I do that? Does that make any sense? Huh? No? What have I been talking about the whole time as far as like when you're trying to taste? It's a mindfulness thing, okay? This requires you to focus. And I've done it so many times I can do it easy, but when I do this, my brain knows, hey, we're not drinking, we're tasting now. It also forces me to concentrate on holding the glass and engages my brain. It's a physical and mental thing, very mental. very mental thing. So I start with this, the hold. I'm not going to penalize you if you can't hold it, like it's fine. All right. Then, if what kind of Cicerone or sommelier would I be if I didn't tell you we swirl it? Well, we swirl it, of course, to release the aromas and get them to our nose so we could do the ortho and retronasal tasting. So what I want you to do is swirl, okay? You can start with big ones if you want and then kind of bring it in, all right? But the idea is to swirl it gently, okay? Counterclockwise around 40 RPMs. Come on now, you can do it. Swirl it. Now, I want you to start low with the beer, down low, not up in the nose, because what you need to do is you need to smell the room, you need to smell the sulfur compounds that come off the beer, you need to just smell, and then what I want you to do is don't think about what you're smelling. Bring it up to your nose slowly until you can smell the product, okay? And as soon as you can smell it, push it away. Okay, so try it again. Swirl, down low, bring it up to the nose. And some people you have to really get close. As soon as you can smell it, push it away. Now, next thing I want you to do is continue to swirl, bring it up, take a 1 second sniff. Take it away, okay? Next thing I want you to do is bring it up and take a 2 second sniff and then take it away. Take it away, all right? Now, okay, we're going to do a covered swirl and then sniff. So take your hand and you're going to make a seal over the top. But I don't know what you all have been doing with your hand. Okay? Have you been pouring gas, filling your car up? Have you washed your hands recently with perfume soap? Okay? Have you given someone a massage? What have you done? And that's going to go on your glass. Just think about that. Now, if you smell something like coconut oil or gasoline or something like that, then you have to sanitize it before you put it on the top. And I do that just by like rubbing it on my shirt a little bit and then going. So cover it, swirl for 10 to 15 seconds. Okay. Now, once you're swirling, you're building up the aromas inside the glass. You're going to bring it to your nose and take a 2 second sniff. And then take it away. Now, notice we haven't even tried it yet. Okay. Now, finally, we're going to introduce the beer to our palate, okay? When we introduce the beer to our palate, we're going to bring the beer into the mouth, let it coat the palate, swallow, and breathe out the nose. The only way you can do that is if you take a little bit of a breath beforehand, because you have to breathe out the nose. So you're going to breathe in, suck some beer in, bring it around the mouth, swallow, breathe out the nose. Everybody try it. And that's the whole process, okay? So what you do is you get into this routine. When I'm being serious about this, I'll have my tasting sheet out. I'll grade the beverage, and I go through that every time on every sample with every taste. And then in between, I'll have some water. So let's say you're at a wine tasting with your friends, okay? Or you're at a beer dinner or a wine dinner, and they provide multiple wines. If you really want to get the flavor, you can do the swirl and sniff and things like that, but you should have some water in between samples too, because that cleanses the palate. I don't say crackers or all different kinds of foods. The reason why we don't want to have that is because that will start changing your individual biochemistry. You'll start digesting the food, okay? You'll start producing more saliva. You'll have blood move around your body in different areas. So if you're really focusing, eating will be a distraction to getting that done, okay? But if you're so hungry that it's a distraction, you better eat something too. So that's how I taste it. Now, one of the things about aroma, and I'll tell you a story about the most common off flavor that's found in beers. And unfortunately, I found a lot in the beers here in the store. And it's the most widely tolerated off flavor in beers. About 20% of people in the whole population cannot smell it. That's anosmic people, right? About 20% cannot smell it at all. And that's the skunky aroma. It's called 3-methylbutane thiol. Okay, and it happens when ultraviolet light hits the hop compound inside the beer. It can happen in as little as 15 seconds. So if you have a clear glass or you're holding a pint glass outside during the day, okay, you'll start producing the 3-methylbutane thiol. Okay, it smells like Corona. Okay, that's been skunked. It smells like Corona. Now, if you take that, if you smell that in your beer and you smell the skunky aroma, the way to get rid of it is to take it up to your nose and take a big sniff, 15 seconds, or a 10-second sniff. If you do that, then it'll it'll completely overwhelm the nose and the aroma part, and you won't be able to smell it again for a good 20, 25 minutes. So when I'm doing this tasting, the reason why I start out low is because if the beer's skunked and this travels really well, the methylbutane thiol travels, I can smell it from here if it's skunked. And then as I get closer, I can smell other sulfurs like hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, stuff like that, the sulfur compound, DMS, dimethyl sulfide. These ones will make you anosmic after as little as 5 seconds of sniffing it, and then you won't be able to smell it. So that's why when you first pour the can, they get released. You get that burnt matchstick smell, or maybe like an eggy aroma that you can smell. And if I'm really trying to evaluate the beer and learn how to make better product, I need to know if that's there. So that's why I start low and bring it up, and then do the swirls and that whole thing. But there's reasons for each part of it, right? That's kind of how I do it. And you can do it with wine, but the most important thing is to realize is that don't just dive into it and take huge sniffs immediately. Take your time, take a 1-second sniff. Don't worry about what you're smelling. It'll, your brain will tell you when it's time to tell you what's in there, okay? And 1-second sniff, 2-second sniff, covered swirl, sniff, breathe out the nose. Say again? I mean, it won't make you sick. An interesting fact about beer is that even the worst tasting beers, 99.9% of the time will not make you sick. It will never make you sick from a pathogenic bacteria. No pathogenic bacteria can live in beer. The reason why that is because hops, they provide acidity to the beer. Fermentation provides acidity to the beer. It has a low pH, like 3.5, 3.8 beer is. Okay, Salmonella, E. coli, things like that cannot live in beer. It also has yeast. Yeast is very hostile to pathogenic bacteria. Okay, so that's why we were drinking beer all the time before we were drinking clean water, right? Actually, even Ben Franklin, he wasn't a drinker, and when he did his internship, learning how to print. Okay, Ben Franklin, is anybody a historian on Ben Franklin? This is something he talked about, learning with relations and human people. They had a stipend that they gave everybody. Everybody had to put money in a pool, all the employees, because everybody drank 5 beers a day, okay, during work. Everybody did, and it was served to everybody during the work at the newspaper, okay? And he said, I don't drink, so I'm not kicking in any money. Okay, I don't want to. I don't drink beer. And what happened is all the stuff that he was trying to publish had errors in it and different things that he was putting out, and he was getting reprimanded all the time. And then he thought to himself, maybe I should put some money in for the beer. And magically, all the errors in his work disappeared, right? So just a side note popped in my head. So the ginger beer, we talked a little bit. There's a theme here today in what's going on. The ginger, there's some spice in this beer as well. Any guesses on the spice? So it's ginger and a few other ingredients. What else is there besides ginger? Lemon, fresh lemon. It's clove. Again, it's clove again. I might get in trouble for telling you one of our secret ingredients, but we make this beer. It's in Total Wine all throughout North and South Carolina. This is a gluten-free ginger beer. It comes from Turks and Caicos. Georgia Dunn. This is a historical recipe that goes back all the way to the 1500s. And we make this product for it. It's a contract brew from raw ginger at Sugar Creek. It's available here, so I just thought I would taste it as well since we had ginger, and just to kind of support Harriet's and their product. She's a fascinating woman. And is a historian on this about her family and coming to America, and it's named after Thomas Harriet, who was like an old, Renaissance man, where he just was an expert on a variety of different things, and he was one of the first people to map the coastline of America and all that kind of stuff. So hope you enjoy this one. It's 5% lemon, ginger, a little bit of spice. Okay, available year round, and it's I like ginger, so I like this one. Oh, each batch has 600 pounds. So if you were here and you were seeing me messing around with my phone initially, it was because I was trying to if you want to see me afterwards, I'll show you because Eric actually sent me the video. I was trying to get the video of us grinding the ginger and jamming it into the fermenter because it's pallets of ginger. And yes, 100%. It's a great one to use for Moscow Mule. What is the big picture in beer? And Michael mentioned ale, okay? Right, and that was kind of used ubiquitously to describe all beer, ales. It's not really correct. There are 3 main categories of beer, and it all has to do with how the beer ferments and the genus of, or species of yeast, I should say, that ferments the beer. So ales use ale yeast, lagers use lager yeast, and sour beers use wild yeast. And if anybody asks, okay, what's really like a basic difference? Does anybody know the basic difference between like an ale and a lager? The temperature of fermentation for sure. Okay, but like if I was doing a tasting, it is a different yeast. If I was doing a tasting here at Total Wine and I had an ale and lager, and by the way, we did that on the first one. If you still have some beer left, the first one was a lager, okay, and the second one was an ale, okay. What's a good way to describe the difference between the two? I would just say in general, the answer is ales tend to, it doesn't mean for everything, they tend to be more fruity than lagers. Okay, and they have more flavors, different flavors, a lot more stuff going on typically than lagers. Lagers are really clean. It's more about the malt and the hops, and they're less expressive in general than ales are, but they're made with different yeasts like Katie said. So now we get to sour beers, and we're gonna have a sour beer in the lineup. That's the third beer that's going to be in the lineup. I'd like you to ask you to keep your beers in the order that they serve them from left to right. That way we can talk about them and then go back to them. But so we have sour beers. This would have been everything pre-Louis Pasteur. So Louis Pasteur was employed by Carlsberg in the late 1800s. Okay, to find out why their beer was going sour. Back then, everything would have. On our body, in the air, everywhere, lives wild yeast and bacteria, things like lactobacillus, okay, pediococcus, Brettanomyces. These different strains of yeast live everywhere, and that's why they live on fruit, they live on vegetables. That's why you can crush cabbage, put it in a jar with nothing else, and let it sit for 2 weeks, and you'll have sauerkraut, right? Or it's an amazing thing to do at home, by the way. I love doing it. It doesn't taste anything like the stuff you get in the store. Try it. Take your cabbage, slice it up, okay? Macerate with your hands really good. Add a tablespoon of salt. Put it in a jar with a little water over the top. Let it sit for 2 weeks. It'll smell terrible for the first 4 days. Then try it on the end. It's amazing. I was scared to try it, but it's so good. And it's really good for you because it's full of probiotics. Sour beers have the same sort of bacterias. They're full of probiotics as well. So another thing that I don't tell anybody, but we're in around 1,000 stores, maybe more in North Carolina, and with these two products. And there's only a few of us here today, so I'll let you in on a little secret. The first product, the Path to Enlightenment, is the same as the second one. Okay, the only difference is that we add California Moro blood oranges to the second one. So we get ours from California, we get them, and we add a blood orange puree of the actual fruit to the beer, and that's why we call it the Big O, because it's a blood orange. But the flavor of it is very reminiscent of grapefruit, isn't it? So the hop selection that we picked when we're designing the beer, you have to think about this. Will the hops complement or contrast or resonate with the grapefruit? It's like being a chef and you're bringing out different dishes. You want to pick a bitterness, okay, and a hops that complement each other. So literally, the first one is canned without the grapefruit, and the second one, the blood orange, and the second one is canned with the grapefruit, right? So one of the things that we have to do to compensate for why do I keep saying grapefruit? Blood orange. What's wrong with me? Blood orange. Eric, please throw something at me. Blood orange. So one of the things is because blood orange it has sugar in it, it's sweet. So we need to make the base of the beer a little more bitter to offset the sweetness so it doesn't turn into like a sweet bomb. So you should notice, even though they're the exact same level of hoppiness, you should get the perception of more hoppiness with the first one versus the second one, right? Even though they're the same hoppiness, right? So when you're designing a beer or tasting different things, even though it's the exact same amount of alpha acids, exact same amount of hops, one has the perception of more sweet than the other. So it's about balance. And this sort of thing goes when you're cooking or making a dish or trying to pair your wine with your food, okay, or vice versa. Yeah, so one of the things you'll commonly see when you go to a brewery, okay, is IBU. And they put that next to the beer similar to like an ABV, okay? Well, the ABV is alcohol by volume. So sometimes they do alcohol by weight in different areas of the world, but we use alcohol by volume. And IBU stands for International Bittering Unit, okay? And it's a quantitative measurement of beer bitterness. It's determined in a lab by measuring how much alpha acids. Now, the hop plant has a resin inside the hop plant called lupulin. And the lupulin gets isomerized in the boiling process of making the beer. When it gets isomerized, it turns into alpha acids, alpha and beta acids. These are what give bitterness and aroma to the beer, okay? And the alpha acids, okay, are measured in a lab, and they use that to determine what the IBUs are. So we can send our beer to a lab and get the IBUs, or we can have a lab at our brewery and do it. But it doesn't tell the whole story. That's the problem with the IBUs. Because even though these two have the same IBUs, the first one and the second one, which one's more bitter than the other? If you send it to the lab, they're both going to say 60 IBUs. They're both going to say it because it's the same beer, right? But when you try it, you're going to say, no way, Joe, the second one's more sweet than the first. So it doesn't tell the consumer the whole story when you see IBUs up there. A lot of people don't put it up there, but it's often on cans. It'll give you a ballpark of what's going on with the beer, but it doesn't tell the whole story. You really need to try it and get back to our priceless equipment, the palate and the nose, to determine if the bitterness is something that you enjoy or not. Now, bitterness is a great thing for food, okay? And this is where we beat wine every single day. It's with the bitterness, all right? And the carbonation of the beer, which I talked a lot about. Now, when you have bitterness, you can take cheese that's rich, okay, and it covers the tongue and is fatty, and that cuts that fat, okay, the bitterness does, and it complements it. So I love a good blue cheese with an IPA, or a good rich creamy brie with a Pilsner or beer, okay, because the beer will complement that cheese so well. Also, if you're having a hamburger, a rich smash burger, or a leg of lamb, or some ribs at your barbecue, or a roast, or whatever you're having, a rich duck, okay? You have a really good carbonated Belgian beer. That carbonation goes inside and it wipes all of the flavor out. It lets you swallow it and taste it again. And it goes with the beer, okay? And then you can take the next bite and you just get refreshed. It refreshes the palate with that carbonation. It scrubs the palate, scrubs the tongue. This is why I like beer for beer and food pairing more than wine, okay? More pairing, I should say. So in here, think about that, what you could try with each little beer in your beautiful gift that you have from Total Wine, like which one complements the beer, or which one contrasts, which one resonates, which one cuts. Those sort of things. It's again exercise in mindfulness, and that will enhance your eating experience. It'll enhance your beer and stuff like that. So hopefully we have 2 more beers coming out, and I'm not going to show you them. We're just going to talk about them, and then I'm going to show them to you. Okay, so beer number 3. Now this one is fermented with lactobacillus, which is the same stuff we make yogurt with. Actually, for a few years, we used to brew the beer with yogurt. We added, this one is completely milk-free, but we would take unpasteurized kefir and add it to the base, and it would quickly turn it sour. We did that for a while, and then we decided we got a cleaner and better beer if we went with a laboratory pitch, like where they cultured just that right strain that we wanted, and we got a really beautiful strain of lactobacillus, which is the yogurt-making bacteria, and we add it, and it's cleaner and fruitier and brighter. So it is absolutely full of probiotics. Okay, it's full of them, and it's chock full of them. So you have to be careful, because if you drink too many of these, and you don't know with the brewery where you go to, it's just the same sort of things that happen if you have too many probiotics will happen. So use your imagination for that, okay? And be considerate of your partner, right? The sour beer that we're trying, the base of this beer is 50% wheat, 50% Pilsner malt. That's it, okay? Very little hops are added, but we always add hops to the beer because it's a great preservative and it counteracts the sweetness of the wort. Okay, all the beers have a little bit of hops. It helps extend the shelf life. It goes really so good with beer that it's pretty much in all of our beers and everybody's beers. So it's wheat and Pilsner malt. Okay, now all the tartness comes from that yogurt bacteria. Okay, and then we ferment it with regular ale yeast. So it's 2 yeast. All right, now to get the color and to get the aroma and flavor, and we make this really tart, and the idea is to be acidic and refreshing and clean. There's some fruits added. Now, I was inspired to make this by a trip I took to Brazil, where I got a chance to judge their Copa Cerveza, which is their largest craft beer competition. They have one every year in a city called Blumenau. And they bring in all the, Brazil is monstrous, if anybody doesn't know how big it's a huge country. It's beautiful. The people are incredibly nice. They make fantastic beer. And they have in that state, Santa Catarina, okay, they love making sour beers, and they have amazing fruits there. So they make a sour beer, and then they blend fruits in, the local Brazilian fruits, which we can't get here, can't import them, right? And they make these beautiful sour beers for the summer because it's just blazing hot in that area of Santa Catarina all the time. So I was like, well, can we make something like that? I collaborated with the brewery in Brazil. Can we make something like that in our brewery? And we came up with this. So this has a few different fruits, and I want to know if anybody can guess them. Cherry, bingo. We got one. Cherry. How about passion fruit? We add passion fruit. You ever had that? I love passion fruit. Passion fruit has a little bit of butyric acid in it. Butyric acid is what babies make when you burp them, and they have that. And unfortunately, it gives it. Sometimes it can be a little. It can people that are sensitive that can smell that, and they don't like the passion fruit. But I really like it. It doesn't come across that way in this, but it also has sweet cherry, tart cherry, passion fruit, okay? And there's one other secret ingredient, well, 2 other secret ingredients. Tangerine. Okay, now, if you blend passion fruit, which really doesn't have much color to it, and these things, the amount of ripeness really matters from where you get it. It varies from season to season. This is an all year round beer for us, okay? And you blend in cherry, and you blend in tangerine, you don't get something this red. So you have to ask where the color comes from. And the color comes from, we steep the beer with hibiscus flower. So it's hibiscus flower, tangerine, sweet cherry, tart cherry, passion fruit. That's it. Yeah. And 6%. So hope you enjoy. So this style of beer coming up is called a Hazy IPA. Has anybody heard of these before? Hazy IPAs? Yeah. Hazy IPA is a big seller right now, and if you go to breweries, almost everything is hazy. They love it. If you were served a beer like this 15 or 20 years ago, they would throw it out because haziness is often an indication of bacterial contamination. Okay, the more hazy it is. But now most craft breweries can't afford a filter. Okay, so they just say everything's hazy. Like look at this one, right? That's like a beautifully polished filtered beer. And then compared to this, which is more, opaque, right? The amount of haziness is called turbidity in beer. A story about how this one came. This style came from a brewery in New England. And they wanted to make the juiciest, hoppiest beer that they could, and to get back to your hoppy question, right? And they didn't want to bring all the bitterness into it. So the bitterness comes from the boiling of the hops, because that's when you isomerize that pollen, that lupulin that's inside the hop flower. It turns to acid, bittering acids that make it bitter. Okay? So they said, well, what the heck? Let's just not boil it. Let's just throw it in the beer. So they threw tons of it in the beer, and because beer hops have polyphenols, okay, in them, and other enzymes, it made the beer hazy. Okay, well, when they tried it, it didn't have the bitterness, and it had a lot more of the hoppy aroma. So we're talking about the difference between the bitterness, which is that acidic bite, that bite on your tongue, versus the aroma of the hops, right? Two different things. There's no bitterness, but this is a more hoppy but less bitter. Okay, and they printed on their can, do not pour into a glass. Okay, drink from the can. Best enjoyed from the can. Because back then, they were afraid the customer, and I don't care what they say, I don't care, I'd like to talk to the owner, he'll tell you it's better from the can, whatever. I don't care what they say. They did it because they knew if the customer poured this thing into the glass and saw little hops floating around or things floating, they would have dumped it. So they said, drink it from the can. But after a while, we figured out how to make these things, and they became popular, and people associate now the haze with the more juicy, hoppy beers. So the reason why I picked this one today is for two reasons. One is the base of the beer, again, for efficiencies, is identical to the High Creek, the sour one that's next to it. So it's wheat and Pilsner, okay? That's why it's light like this. But we don't add the fruit, okay? And it's a different yeast. So it's ale yeast, okay? And we add a boatload of hops. This is one of our most expensive beers to make because the hops are so expensive. We had a boatload. So you're going to get like pineapple, okay? You're going to get pine resin, some dankness, they call it, okay? Maybe a little bit of like, they say dankness. So dankness is common to find in beer, and it's also common to find in cannabis, okay? So people that enjoy good cannabis, remember I told you I was in the Navy, I can't do it. The people that enjoy good cannabis will tell you, oh man, that was dank, they say. And a good beer, they might say, oh, that was really dank. Well, because hops and cannabis are in the same genus, they're in the family together. And a lot of the same aromas that you get inside the marijuana flower are the same that you get in the hop flower, okay? And a lot of times when my guys in the back of the brewery are dry hopping this, they're covered from head to toe in hops, and they come in my office and I'm like, you need to be drug screened because you smell like you just smoked a big joint, because they're so similar. And now I've been to states where it's legal because I'll travel around the country and do judging or do Navy work, and I'll go in the dispensary and just see what they have, because I'm interested in making a beer with cannabis, but that's not legal now. I'd like to do that, but of course I couldn't try it, but for now until I retire. The descriptors that they use to describe the cannabis are very similar to how we describe hops. It's because they have the same stuff. Things like linalool, which is coriander, found from coriander and citrus. Things like limonene, which is a lemon. Okay, geraniol, which is the smell of the geranium flower. These things are in hops, and they're also in the flower of the marijuana plant. So it's becoming more crafty these days, apparently. So I don't know if you like this one or not. I hope you enjoy. This is one of our popular ones. Give it a try, see what you get. So what I want you to do now, okay, for our next tasting is try to, and you can use your dump bucket, okay, try to mix it. I want you to mix 50% Big O and 50% Hazy. Mix them together, try to blend it. Now listen, sometimes 1 + 1 is 3, and that's what we're going for here. Okay, so what we did is we have the first blended IPA in the Carolinas. And Greg, can they get this here? Okay, in about 2 weeks you can get this in Total Wine. This we just did, and we literally took 1 tank of Hazy, 1 tank of Big O, blend them together, and we made the Hazy O. The reason why is because our guests in the tap room for years have been doing this because they felt like the Big O was too sweet and they wanted something a little more hoppy, but not as sweet as the Big O. And they would ask the bartender to cut it a little with the Hazy, which they like, okay? And they invented the Hazy O. So I'm curious, which one did you like better, okay? And okay, just for a quick poll. So if you had raise your hand if out of the three, just out of the three, Big O is going to be number 1, the Hazy is going to be number 2, and then number 3 is Big O Hazy. Raise your hand if 1 was your favorite. Okay? Raise your hand if 2 was your favorite. Okay? And raise your hand if 3 was your favorite. How about that? How about that? So, 10 years we've been doing this now, and what a blessing it's been. It's been a wild ride doing this. And, you know, I started brewing maybe 10 years before that, so we'll say 20 years. And I was just messing around in my basement. And the final beer we're going to try for tonight is the Belgian Quad. So this is kind of a career milestone for us because I've been brewing this beer for, say, 20 years and have hundreds of iterations of it. And last year, we got the gold in the World Beer Cup. So thank you. So it was awesome. I wasn't there. I wish I was there to receive the award. But look who got second, a Trappist brewery, one of the only, right? So La Trappe Double got second. Okay, and then Firestone Walker, one of my all-time favorite breweries, and that we've modeled, you know, just fantastic beer. They're owned by Duvel Morgat, which is a Belgian company. So they got third. So Duvel, the Belgians, okay, the Netherlands, Le Trappist Monastery, and Sugar Creek for the gold, for the quad. So you all have one of the bottles. You know, you talk about your $15 ticket price here today. We sell these bottles for $25 at the brewery. So glad to have a gift for everybody to have one. But we're going to open it and enjoy. So my last little lesson for that, you can buy this on our web store if you want online, and we'll ship a bottle to your house. So back to the dinner party thing, right? You can get a world-class beer. Actually, I think it's even cheaper on our website that has a gold and beats the best that have been doing it for hundreds for $20, okay? And you can bring this to your dinner party. It'll pair with anything that they have there, any kind of meat. It pairs amazing. It's different. It's cheaper. It's budget friendly. You can try ours or one of the other ones in the large format bottles. I'm on a personal crusade to bring these back because nobody buys these anymore at the stores for some reason. But they're spectacular gifts for people and great to bring to a dinner party or have for a special occasion. The shelf life on these are like 3-4 years, okay, on these bottles. So I'm going to talk a little bit about service on these bottles, okay, and how they do it in Belgium and how you should do it if you're going to a dinner party. So hopefully everybody can see me up here, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do it. And hopefully this works, okay, because sometimes it doesn't. So let's say you have, and this is why I only put one bottle, and you're gonna, one person, whoever's closest to the bottle, or whoever you like, is gonna, like I said, excuse me, is gonna open it and serve it. But I'm gonna demonstrate, and then you're gonna do it. Now, Each bottle that's like this, the reason why I like it, it's re-fermented inside the bottle, meaning we add yeast, okay, and sugar, and we start fermentation back up in the bottle and seal it. Then we age it at the brewery until it's ripe enough and good enough to serve. While it's re-fermenting in the bottle, it produces aromas, flavors, and carbon dioxide. And we can get it way more carbonated in these thick, heavy bottles than we can in putting it into the cans or serving it on the draft system. So we tend to get more carbonated. These ones are relatively young. These bottles are. And in Belgium, the server would tell you if they were young or not. And they're not fully up to the carbonation that we want, where we want it to be 3 volumes and super bubbly. It's still early. I wouldn't send it to the competition until it's completely done. But this would continue to mature for 1, 2, 3 years in your house if you stored it upright outside of the refrigerator. Okay. Now it's still a young bottle. So what you want to do is it's going to have some sediment in the bottom and a little bit. It's hard to see because I wouldn't shake it yet. Just if you pick it up, pick it this way, because we don't want to get the sediment in our beer. That's the goal. Okay. So the reason why I line my glasses up is because we only want to tilt it one time. So that's the goal. You open it, you tilt it once. That's it. So if I have the bottle like this and I tilt it to pour, and then I tilt it again, and then I tilt it again, and I tilt it again, I'm going to flush all that sediment on the bottom that we use, that yeast and whatever hops or whatever sunk in there during the aging process, into my glass. You're going to see things floating and stuff like that. Okay, so when you store these upright in your fridge. Now this doesn't go for every beer. Okay, it's not a panacea for every single beer. It's just most of them. German Hefeweizens, wheat beers are often meant to be served with the yeast. And yeast is super high in B vitamin. It's very healthy for you, sometimes prescribed, okay, because it's full of minerals and vitamins. It is a little bit of a GI irritant as well. So if you have a lot of it, it tends to sometimes give you a little bit of a tummy ache. But it's totally healthy to drink. It's just more bitter, and it's not as appealing as the rest of the beer, and it interferes with the actual body of the flavor. So I like to leave it back in the glass, and then if you want it to enjoy it, drink it separately in a separate glass. Okay, and you'll see it's a little bit more milky looking. I'm hoping I can get a sample of what it looks like from my my pour here. So what we're going to do is we're going to tilt it one time, and then we're going to, remember how I taught you all to do the stack pour? Okay, put your glasses close by. You don't have to totally keep it down. You'll make a big mess. I mean, you can tilt it less. The idea is to minimize how much you tilt. Okay, so we'll open it up and line the 3 up, the 3 glasses or however many glasses you have, and do a pour. Let the foam settle and try to give yourself a good 50-50 pour. I don't know how ripe they are as far as the foam goes. So we'll find out. Every bottle is a different experience. Now, with that said, some of them might have already been really carbonated because of the temperature exposure. So when I open it, or if I open champagne bottle or something, I tend to put it on a flat surface like this and cover it. Then I take the cage off like this. Okay, I take the cage off, okay? And then I can get a feel, and the twister must have been messed up because mine broke too. But I get a feel for how lively the cork is. Now, I've been doing these presentations for 10 years. I've had ones like this where I thought I had it under control, and I've ricocheted off the ceiling into someone's glass. Okay, so I've even done it myself, right? So the gentleman down at the end, I forgot your name, sir. I'm sorry, Steve. Steve has his cage off. It's fine. It's completely fine. It's not coming out, right? And it looks like mine's not going to come out either. So it's telling me it's not super carbonated. So to get this out, you need a good strong grip. Okay, and what you do is you see how I'm choked up on it like this? That's the wrong way. So the idea is to get a grip at the bottom, because now you have leverage. Okay, dry your hand and then pull it out like that. I need to use my shirt, I think, here, okay, to get an idea. All right, so this one here is, all right, and then, so yes, now if it's to your level of carbonation and you desire that you have it, if you want to stop the maturation process and have it stop continuing to develop, okay, in room temperature around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is perfect, 20 Celsius, if it's finished and you're ready to serve it and you like how it is, put it in the fridge. That'll halt that, okay? It'll slow down the development of it because it's a living breathing ale. Okay, so try it, give it a pour. You control the carbonation by the height. Okay, try to minimize how many times you tilt it. Talk to your neighbors and pour yourself one. So the color of this, all right, you look at a color that's like this and you say, oh, roasty, toasty, things like that, but you shouldn't be getting that flavor in this. The sharpness that you get from a normal dark roast and a dark coffee, you're not going to get here, because the dark color comes from Belgian candy sugar that we have made in California, and we get dark caramelized candy sugar and we add that to the beer to add ABV and to give it the color. So it's 7.6%. Think brown sugar, dates, caramel, a little bit of cherry, stuff like that. Now, I left this one out when we got here at 4 p.m. because I wanted the beer to warm up a little. We had it on ice here. I wanted it to warm up and kind of get to cellar temperature. Cellar temperature is like 50 to 55 degrees, okay? So when they talk about having warm beer, okay, we're not really talking about warm. Nothing's good warm in the beer world. It's better cellar temperature, 50 to 55, something like that. Something that you have rich flavors in, like this, that's malty and dark, better at cellar temperature, okay? I don't like, as far as the macro brands, I don't like High Life. That's the only one I don't like. It's too corny tasting to me. But I like Coors more. I like the Banquet, but I like Coors more because it has more banana in it. And if you try our Pilsner, it has more banana, kind of full-bodied. So if I'm going to the beach, I bring our Pilsner usually. And that's what I drink in a koozie, keep it cold. Once you get spoiled drinking fresh craft beer, it's like living and working at a bakery. Okay, you're getting fresh bread all the time. We're getting fresh beer. We get spoiled. You go out. I don't care where it is. You're like, oh man, I miss our beer because it's so fresh, and that freshness is important. So one of the things I'd encourage you to do, okay, if you're trying to make a decision on the beer that you want to get, where you go, is to investigate the date code on the bottom of it. Usually, now you have to have some knowledge on understanding what you're getting, because for instance, the High Creek that we service is not made like regular beer. It's soured, and it literally will last forever like that. It lasts so long. It doesn't go bad, really. But something like the Pilsner, you want, or a hoppy like the unlimited juice, you want to try to get it within six to 8 months of the date on there, okay? And the closer to packaging date, the better. Now, breweries do all kinds of slick things to hide the dates on there, okay? They do different kinds of codes and all kinds of things. But if you find ours, the date on the bottom of the can is the born on date, and you want to be within, preferably 6 to 8 months of that born on date. Okay. I like to drink it closer to 2. If you get something that's 2 months old, that's pretty fresh because it goes from the brewery to the distributor, and then from the distributor they use FIFO, first in, first out, to the retailer. Then the retailer uses first in, first out to use, so they're all getting rotated like that. The fresher, the better if you're trying to make a decision on the shelf. Okay, good retailers rotate their stock like we're here, and so that's that. Help me out, Garrett Oliver. Okay, Garrett Oliver. He's the brewmaster from Brooklyn Brewery. He's one of my favorites. He wrote the Oxford Companion to Beer, which is like a beer dictionary. It has all kinds of stuff in it, and this is found in the foreword. And I just love this quote, and I just want to bring it out. I used to start the presentation with it, but now I'm going to end because it's one of my favorite quotes. Okay, and this is in the Oxford the Oxford Companion to Beer, and this is what he says, what he thinks about beer, and it kind of puts perspective to me. What it means is like how important beer has been, and how it permeates everything in our culture, and it's just been everywhere with human civilization. So he acknowledges that. I'll let you, I'm going to read this to you. So Garrett says, because beer can taste like almost anything, it brings superior talents to the dinner table. Beer does not resemble wine so much as it resembles music. Beer predates human civilization and may well have had a hand in creating it. Beer was primary in the minds of ancient peoples who carved word of it into stone, painted images of it upon temple walls, built cities fueled by its manufacture and carried it with them into the afterlife. Beer built castles in Bavaria, great ships upon the Baltic Sea, powered the Hanseatic League, and modern industry in London. Many of the founding fathers brewed beer, and it has graced the table of the White House for more than 200 years. Across the sweep of world history, at the cutting edge of technology, on the tables of the rich and the poor, in almost every human situation of any real note, you will find beer. So I hope you all enjoyed today. Thanks so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.